Just before we dive into the video, if you're new to the channel, then we've got some internal structure worked into the midfoot, just a standard tongue construction. Standard tongue construction. Hooray! We got there in the end. How's it going, folks? I'm Lloyd Purvis and this is Run4Adventure. Just before we dive into the video, if you're new to the channel, then welcome along. It's great to have you and thanks for watching. If you make it to the end of the video and you really enjoy what you see, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, but also hit that bell icon so you'll be notified when we upload any new content. It really does help Run4Adventure out when it comes to the crazy world of the YouTube algorithms, and it would be greatly appreciated. Right, we are back today with another trail running shoe review, and I've actually had this shoe for some time now, and I got the miles in it a long time ago. We've just been so busy at the channel, traveling out to Chamonix for UTMB, and then all the work that comes afterwards with the post-production, editing, looking for all the video clips, that I kind of forgot about this poor little trail shoe from Salomon, the Ultra Raid. This was a shoe that I actually didn't hear a lot about, but I was drawn to it from this black and red colourway. I am a big fan of a Salomon running shoe in that colour combination. Now I know I always say never ever ever buy a shoe on colour, but I did kind of break one of my running shoe buying rules with this one. So let's get stuck in, give you a few facts and figures on the Salomon Ultra Raid, but also find out if I made an expensive mistake. The Ultra Raid retails in the UK for £130 and it weighs in at 280 grams in a men's UK 9.5. Now, there's not a lot of information on this shoe, so I had to get the tape measure out, and I'm pretty sure it runs off a 6mm offset. It is available in 4 different colourways for men and for women, and when it comes to the fit of the shoe, I would say it sizes up true to size with average width in the toe box. As far as construction goes, we're going to start with the upper first, and Salomon have used this almost transparent sort of ripstop nylon on that construction just to give the shoe good levels of breathability, keeping your feet nice and cool even in the warmest conditions. We've got some internal structure worked into the midfoot of the shoe just to give it a bit of substance, but also to help with a nice secure fit and lockdown, cutting back on any medial or lateral movement within that upper when you're hitting the trails. The tongue is pretty thin, there's not a lot of padding in that tongue, and it's not gusseted in the shoe either, so it's just a sort of standard tongue design, which was a bit of a surprise. Most of the trail running shoes from Salomon that I've run in have had a sort of banded midfoot or a gusseted tongue in them, and it's always been a feature that I like about a Salomon running shoe, so it's going to be really interesting to see how this one performs. No Salomon speed lace on the upper either, it is just rocking an old school lace system. So the good news is you don't get one of those poorly designed lace pockets either. Sorry if you haven't watched our latest comparison video featuring the Salomon Ultra Glides and the Saucony Endorphin Trail, then you won't fully understand that comment. So I've left a link in the description for that video if you want to find out what I mean by poorly designed pocket. We've got a moderate level of padding around the ankle collar and in the heel cup. We've got some overlays working from the heel down to the forefoot and around that lacing system, just to offer a bit of structure and a bit of extra durability. And then last but not least, a feature I really like in my trail running shoes, we got this pretty substantial rubberized toe bumper to offer good levels of protection in the toe from trail debris. Working our way down to the midsole of the shoe, and Salomon have used energy foam cushioning to offer you that plush, soft, responsive ride with good levels of ground connection. They've paired that midsole up with an Ortholite die-cut sock liner just to provide superior cushioning and breathability. And then we have the all-important outsole, and it comes with a pretty good lug depth of 4mm, and those lugs have been coated in Salomon's Contigrip MA rubber to give you good levels of traction and grip on wet, dry, loose and hard surfaces, but also to provide a bit of long-term durability. So there you have it, the Ultra Raid from Salomon, a bit of information about the spec and how the shoe has been constructed. I put a good 30 miles plus in the shoe, so I think it's about time we talked about the things that I've enjoyed, but also maybe highlight a few issues that we've had along the way. But let's start with the good stuff first. The first thing to mention is the weight of the shoe, and having this super lightweight sort of stripped back upper construction, and the fact that I've been spending a lot of time in deep midsole trail running shoes of late, the shoe did feel very light and nimble and responsive out on the trails, and it actually took me a few runs to get used to having less bulk in the upper and less cushioning underfoot. The level of grip and traction from the outsole has been pretty good, and I haven't really had any issues with it at all. It hasn't got the deepest lug in the world, but a sort of good lug depth to cross over to lots of different surfaces and terrains. To be fair, I never got to test that outsole out in deep, boggy, muddy conditions, and I think it might struggle a little bit in those, but more than adequate for everything else. The same can be said for that Contagrip MA rubber that coats those lugs, and it's offered me a really good level of traction out on the rocky sections that I've run the shoe on, whether they were wet or dry, so no real issues to speak of when it comes to the outsole of the shoe. Also, that toe bumper offered great levels of protection, and I got to test it out a few times back in the summer. The trails were quite overgrown for long periods of time, and I was bobbing along the trail. Unbeknown to me, there was a rock in the middle of it, and I managed to kick it pretty hard. Also, going up a set of Cornish steps, my legs were quite fatigued and heavy, and I managed to stub my toe on the way up. But this toe bumper performed really well, so no black toenails. So nice and lightweight, responsive, good levels of traction from the outsole, and a really good level of protection from the toe bumper. But that's kind of where the good stuff ends. So just before we dive into the not so good stuff, when I actually purchased this shoe on the Salomon website, it didn't feature with their trail running shoes. So just to double check, I clicked on the description, and the description said it had been designed for hiking, trekking, adventure racing, and ultra running. So I thought, great, and I purchased a pair. Unfortunately, if you go back on the Salomon website now, click on the Ultra Raid and read the description, it says something very, very different, and maybe this is why it hasn't performed particularly well when it comes to trail running. The description actually says that it's ideal for long summer walks and exploration, so maybe that's why it's been struggling out on the trails. The first issue I had came with the tongue of the shoe, and when I first saw that tongue wasn't gusseted or banded in the upper, I had my doubts, and unfortunately those doubts were correct. The tongue is very thin in construction, there's literally hardly any padding on it at all, and it's not very comfortable across the top of the foot because it doesn't offer any protection from the laces. Number two, it's just not wide enough in the upper, so every time I put my foot into the shoe, the thin sides of that tongue would just roll up and fold back on themselves, being very, very annoying. And it'd probably take me 5, 6, 7 times to get that tongue to lay flat, and if I didn't give it the time to get it flat, then that tongue would be super uncomfortable and it would cause irritation. It would have been so much better if that tongue was fitted or they had a gusseted tongue in the shoe, and it's such a shame when it comes to fit and comfort. The other thing I wasn't overly convinced about was the midsole construction and the sock liner that comes with the shoe. Now, a lot of trail running shoes are getting softer and deeper when it comes to the level of cushioning in that midsole. Some runners are loving it, some runners not so keen on it. When I first started running in the Ultra Raids, it felt pretty comfortable, it felt pretty cushioned, and I was really enjoying having that sort of high level of connection back to the trails. Unfortunately, after about 20 miles, that midsole seemed to flatten off a bit, and it did lose quite a lot of softness. It turns out that a lot of that initial softness was actually coming from that sock liner, not the midsole. It was very soft and very squishy, and I personally think a little bit too soft, because it did flatten off and compress very quickly and leave that midsole feeling quite firm, so not ideal after only 20 miles. Staying with the midsole construction from now, and on the bottom of the shoe it says a Pro Feel film is worked into that midsole, so very similar to what you get in the Sense Ride 4 or the Ultra Glides. Now, it didn't really seem to offer a lot of protection, if I'm honest. There was several times I was running in rocky areas or descending in rocky areas, and I took some heavy foot strikes through this midsole to the point where it kind of made me wince and made my eyes water. Now, not a problem if you're running on sort of soft ground or buffed out trails, but spending a lot of time running on the Cornish coast path, you're going to come to a rocky, sharp, technical area sooner or later. So I always like to have a really good level of protection protection from a rock plate in my trail running shoes. I've got to be brutally honest, and it's not been the best experience for me in a Salomon trail running shoe. And I'm normally a big fan of their trail running shoes. I personally think at the same price as the Ultra Glides that we've reviewed on the channel earlier, which I'm a big fan of, this shoe has left me a little bit, well, not a little bit disappointed, very disappointed. But we've reached that time in the review when we need to get some points on the Run4Adventure board. So let's start scoring the Ultra Raid from Salomon, and let's start with the price first. So like I just said, retailing at the same price as the Salomon Ultra Glides, £130. I think that's very expensive for this shoe. To me, it feels more like a £90 shoe than a £130 shoe. So because of this reason, we're going to score it a disappointing 5 out of 10 when it comes to price. Moving on, and up next is comfort and performance. And if I was scoring the Ultra Raid after 20 miles, I'd probably have given it a 7 out of 10. Unfortunately, that's not the case, and I have had several issues along the way. First being that tongue not fitting right, not being comfortable at all in the upper, the midsole and that sock liner flattening off pretty quickly, and the lack of protection in that midsole on a trail running shoe. It has kind of left me pretty underwhelmed. Now, this is quite hard for me to do. I've got a lot of history with Salomon running shoes, and I tend to enjoy their trail running shoes, but I think the Ultra Raid is a little bit of a dud. So it's going to get a very average 5 out of 10 for comfort and performance. Lastly to be scored is the important topic of durability, and so far so good. The upper looks to be holding up really well. There's no early signs of any stress on that upper at the flex points or anything like that. And the outsole rubber, again, no signs of early wear. Whenever we do these reviews on the channel, I always like to do a bit of research, so I tend to pop on and see what other people have got to say about the performance and the durability of the shoe. I clicked on the reviews for the Ultra Raid on the Salomon website, and literally every single one of them was saying about durability issues and about how this ripstop nylon was breaking down super quick and splitting at the flex point. That hasn't happened on my pair. Like I said, 30 plus miles in it, and it looks pretty good. So we're going to score, when it comes to durability, a cautious 7 out of 10. So adding all those points up at Run4Adventure for the Salomon Ultra Raid, it scores a lackluster 17 out of 30. Next up is a subjective topic of looks, and I think this is actually an area where the Ultra Raid excels. Obviously, not much good if the shoe's performance isn't there, and maybe it is a little bit of style over substance, but I'm a big fan of this red and black colorway on a Salomon shoe, very S-Lab-like, and in fact, all the colorways the Ultra Raid come in are pretty cool looking, and I like the design. So on a slightly more positive note, it's going to get a big thumbs up at Run4Adventure for looks. When it comes to comparisons for the Ultra Raid, luckily, I can't really think of many, because I've got to be honest, most of the trail running shoes I've run this year have actually performed a lot better and felt more comfortable when it comes to the upper. The Sense Ride 4, obviously being a Salomon shoe, will feel similar. I don't want to do that shoe an injustice. It's actually a much better performing trail running shoe, way more comfortable in the tongue area of that upper, and it is a lot more affordable when it comes to the price point. Right, it's about time that we wrap this review up with a quick conclusion, and this time round I'm going to keep this one short and sweet. If you're looking for a trail running shoe to cross over to lots of different types of terrain, and you're not going to be running any heavy, boggy, wet, muddy trails, then I would definitely recommend the Salomon Ultra Glide, and unfortunately not the Ultra Raid. I mean, come on, £130, the same price point. Which shoe would you choose? Oops. Anyway, guys, that is a wrap on another review at Run4Adventure. Really hope you enjoyed it. I really hope you found it helpful. It would be awesome to hear anyone else's opinions on the Salomon Ultra Raid. So if you've got a pair, if you've had a pair, let us know how the shoe has performed for you in the comments below. Busy times at the channel, and we've got lots of cool, awesome products turning up to test and review for you guys at home. Obviously, I need to get myself fit and strong and healthy again first, but the lower leg issues, the calf issues are definitely improving. I've had some treatment lately from Paul Coker from Move Physiotherapy, and I've been seeing the awesome Kate Skipper. So lots of people are working really hard trying to put me back together. The super supportive Night Court have just sent us a bundle of goodies to test and review and to play around with. They're having a big push into the world of trail running. So they just sent us one of their UT27 head torches, packed full of great features, 2 different types of light, great lighting performance and burn time, all in this tiny, really lightweight package. So very excited to test that out. And they also sent us a really interesting product, their NU05LE, which is a high performance flashing LED light. So perfect for that sort of mandatory kit for long ultra races. Speaking of head torches, we have just done our first ever Run4Adventure buying guide featuring running head torches. So if you're in the market for a new head torch, your first head torch, or just upgrading an existing unit, it's definitely worth checking out. So I've left a link in the description. But for now, guys, thanks for watching. It's always appreciated. We will see you back here very soon. And as always, stay safe and keep on running.